the vision, which the CEO, Andrew Ryan, saw as an opportunity, and which he actually shaped, was the Jobs Act at the time. This was back in 2016, where it was making it possible for companies to raise from non-accredited investors, really kind of opening it up so that companies could literally, prior private raises, you'd have to be accredited to be able to invest in it. And with the Jobs Act, there were a lot of changes made, and one of them was to open it up to just anyone to invest up to certain levels. But we're talking about prior, maybe 1% of the population might, as a startup, you could access. And with the changes, literally anyone could invest. So it really opened up a huge market. So just kind of looking at a fundamental change in funding, and kind of opening up just the whole entire private equity market to just standard individuals, and what that might bring to what the opportunities that could bring. And so one thing that Newchip looked at was how to sort of facilitate that, with, at the time, there were all of these funding portals that were, if you could imagine, like back then, Kickstarter, which was purely non-equity, but all of these types of portals were now going to be able to raise, equity raises, Reg CF raises, and really, how can you take all of this activity and really kind of aggregate it onto one site. And one thing that impressed me about the CEO, and kind of one of my main thesis today, is someone that has a big vision, but can execute on it and build a company. And so over the next, I would say, 3 years, because I stayed very close, and I was, like I said, an early investor, and Newchip pivoted to help. There was really a need to help. There were so many companies out trying to, well, I think the number one challenge that companies have is to be able to, one, scale, but being able to scale, you need money. So it really was surrounding in, how do you actually raise money? Where do you go to raise money? And how do you target investors? And it's this whole big, unsolved problem. The traditional accelerator, up until this point, because there's accelerators, the traditional accelerator is somewhat limited in terms of having a very specific geographic, companies or CEOs would have to be in a particular city to take advantage or relocate to that city, and then being very space constraint, where maybe only 8 to 10 companies at a time could be admitted to the accelerator. And so there was this real problem where too many good companies, CEOs were not really having access to that fundamental knowledge of how to raise or being connected to investors. And so that's kind of what started the current model with Newchip today, is to help a vast number of companies really understand what it takes and what successful companies do to scale, and then how to go about getting investors, what investors to target. And we actually, Newchip has a whole team right now, 50 going on, growing team. So, it's admissions, and then it's a whole startup success team that works with the companies once they're onboarded, with mentoring and workshops, and helping them with their pitch deck, and helping them to refine their pitch deck, and really kind of helping them to understand what's important to investors, what KPIs should they be tracking, how should they be, what should they be thinking about, how to actually go after investors. And then we have a whole investor relations team to help connect investors to our companies. And it's really about kind of matchmaking to say, we've got this company here and this investor here, and it's all about sort of finding the right matches so we can kind of make those matches.